He signed the divorce papers without hesitation until his phone rang. The hospital. 7 months pregnant. A secret she buried in silence. Why did she hide it? What truth was so devastating she chose to walk away from everything? From him? From their empire? From the world they built together? He thought he knew her. He thought he had control. But some secrets don't just break hearts, they shatter entire worlds. Tonight, one phone call will force a man who never begs to his knees, and a woman who never looked back, to face the one thing she can't run from. This is not a love story. This is a reckoning. The hospital's name flashed on the screen. He almost didn't answer. Business calls came at all hours. This was likely nothing. But something in the timing felt wrong. Mr. Kang. The voice on the other end was steady, professional, careful. This is Dr. Patel from Mercy General. Your wife. Ex-wife, he corrected, his voice flat. A pause. Sir, she's listed you as her emergency contact. She was brought in an hour ago. There were complications. His jaw tightened. What kind of complications? She's 7 months pregnant, Mr. Kang. The room went silent. Not the kind of silence that comes from quiet. The kind that comes from the world stopping. He looked at her, still seated, staring at her hands, her face unreadable. 7 months, he repeated slowly, his voice dangerously calm. The doctor continued. She's stable now, but we need you here. There are decisions that need to be made. He ended the call. She finally looked up. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't cry. She never cried in front of him. You were going to leave, he said. Not a question. A statement. I was going to protect you, she whispered. From what? From this. She stood, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach, a gesture he'd somehow missed, or maybe she'd hidden too well. From the world tearing us apart because of a child they'd never accept. He rose slowly, his presence filling the room like a storm gathering strength. You don't get to decide that for me. You don't get to decide it for them, she shot back, her voice breaking. Do you know what they'd say? What they'd do? A black woman, your wife, pregnant with your child? They'd call it a scandal, a liability, a mistake. They don't matter. They're your world. You were my world. The words landed between them like shattered glass. She shook her head. You built an empire, Jay. You don't get to burn it down for me. Watch me. They arrived at the hospital in separate cars. He walked through the halls like he owned them, because in a way, he did. His family's donations had built the East Wing. His influence opened doors that didn't open for anyone else. But none of that mattered when he saw her. She was lying in the hospital bed, smaller than he remembered, her skin glowing in a way that felt almost unreal. Monitors beeped softly. An IV drip hung beside her, and her hand rested on the curve of her belly. Dr. Patel greeted him with a nod. She's stable. The baby is healthy, but she's under significant stress, emotionally and physically. Why didn't anyone tell me? His voice was ice. She requested that we didn't. Until tonight she was managing privately. He turned to her. Why? She met his eyes. Because I knew what you'd do. What would I do? This. She gestured at him, standing there, immovable, terrifying in his calm. You'd take over. You'd fix it. You'd make decisions without asking what I wanted. And what do you want? Her lips trembled. I want our child to have a life that isn't defined by your world. Our child will have everything. Except peace. The silence that followed felt like falling. Dr. Patel cleared his throat. I'll give you two some privacy. When the door closed, Jay moved closer. He didn't sit. He stood at the edge of her bed, looking down at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. You were going to raise my child alone. I was going to raise our child safely. You think I'm dangerous. I think your world is. He exhaled slowly. Then we leave it. She blinked. What? We leave. All of it. The business, the pressure, the expectations. His hand moved to the bed rail, gripping it like he was anchoring himself. You think I built that empire because I wanted it? I built it because I thought it mattered. But if it costs me you, if it costs me this, then it means nothing. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more. She shook her head, her voice breaking. You'd regret it. One day, you'd wake up and resent me for taking it all away. I'd regret losing you more. He reached out, his hand hovering over hers, over the place where their child grew. She didn't pull away, and for the first time in 7 months, she let herself hope. The news broke 3 days later. Not because they wanted it to, but because someone at the hospital talked. Someone always talked. Billionaire CEO Jay Kang reconciles with estranged wife, pregnant and in crisis. The headline was everywhere. Business outlets, gossip blogs, social media threads dissecting every angle. His phone didn't stop ringing. Investors, board members, family. He ignored them all. Instead, he stayed at the hospital. He sat in that uncomfortable chair beside her bed and refused to leave. He answered emails one-handed while holding hers with the other. He made calls in the hallway, his voice clipped and cold, shutting down every question about his personal life with surgical precision. You can't stay here forever, she said softly one evening. Watch me. Jay, she squeezed his hand. Your company will survive without me for a few days. Your family doesn't get a say in this. She smiled weakly. You're impossible. I'm consistent. Dr. Patel had cleared her for discharge, but only under strict conditions. Bed rest, minimal stress, regular monitoring. Jay had already arranged everything. A private nurse, a fully equipped medical suite in his home, security that made the Secret Service look relaxed. You don't have to do all this, she said as they prepared to leave. Yes, he said simply. I do. His penthouse overlooked the city like a throne over a kingdom. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Minimalist design. Everything precise, controlled, cold. Except now, there were soft blankets on the couch. Herbal teas in the kitchen. A bedroom transformed into a sanctuary. Warm lighting, comfortable furniture. Everything she might need within arm's reach. You did all this? She asked, standing in the doorway. I had help. He set her bag down gently. But I chose everything. She walked slowly into the room, her hand trailing along the edge of the bed. It's beautiful. You're staying. It wasn't a question. She turned to face him. We haven't talked about what happens next. We will, when you're ready. I'm ready now. He studied her for a long moment. Are you? She sat on the edge of the bed, exhaling slowly. I need to know what this is, Jay. Are we together because of the baby? Or because you actually want me? He moved closer, crouching down so they were eye level. I wanted you before I knew about the baby, he said quietly. I wanted you when you walked into my office 3 years ago and told me my marketing strategy was emotionally bankrupt. I wanted you when you refused to be impressed by anything I owned. I wanted you every single day we were married, even when we were falling apart. Her eyes glistened. Then why did you sign the papers? Because you asked me to, and I thought, if I loved you, I had to let you go. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Probably. She reached out, her fingers brushing his jaw. I left because I was scared. Scared of your world. Scared of not being enough. Scared that one day you'd wake up and realize you made a mistake. You were never a mistake. Your family thinks I am. His expression hardened. My family doesn't get to decide my life. They're going to fight this, Jay. They're going to fight us. Let them. She pulled her hand back. You say that now. But when the pressure comes, when the board threatens to remove you, when your mother stops speaking to you, when the media turns this into a circus, I've already made my choice. He stood, his voice firm. You, the baby, this life. Everything else is negotiable. Nothing in your world is negotiable. Then I'll renegotiate the entire deal. The first real test came that night. His mother called. He almost didn't answer. But he knew avoidance would only make things worse. Jay. Her voice was sharp, controlled. We need to talk. I'm listening. No. In person. Tomorrow. My office. I'm not leaving her. A pause. So it's true, she's pregnant. Yes. And you're taking her back. I never let her go. His mother's exhale was audible. Do you have any idea what this will do to the company? To our family's reputation? I don't care. You should. This isn't just about you, Jay. This affects everyone. Your father built this empire, and I've doubled it. I've earned the right to live my life. Not when your life threatens everything we've built. His grip on the phone tightened. She's not a threat. She's a liability. The press is already circling. Investors are concerned. The board is asking questions. Then I'll answer them. By doing what? Throwing away your legacy for a woman who walked out on you? She didn't walk out. I failed her. And I'm not making that mistake again. Silence. Then quietly. If you do this, Jay, there will be consequences. I'm aware. Are you prepared to lose everything? He looked toward the bedroom where she was resting. I already did once, he said. I'm not doing it again. He ended the call, and for the first time in his life, he felt free. The meeting was set for 9 a.m. Jay arrived at his family's corporate headquarters at 8:45. Not because he was eager, because he wanted this over with. The building was a monument to legacy, glass and steel rising above the city like a declaration of power. His family's name was etched into the lobby floor in gold. Their faces hung in portraits along the executive wing. He walked past them all without looking. His mother was waiting in the top-floor conference room. Not alone. His father sat at the head of the table. His older brother, Min, leaned against the window with his arms crossed. And 3 board members, old guards who'd been with the company since before Jay was born, occupied the other seats. This is an ambush, Jay said flatly. This is an intervention, his mother replied. He didn't sit. You have 5 minutes. His father spoke first. His voice was gravelly, worn by years of commanding rooms like this. Sit down, Jay. I'm fine standing. Sit. Down. Jay sat, not out of obedience, out of strategy. Let them think they had control. We've reviewed the situation, his father began. The pregnancy, the media coverage, the complications. Complications, Jay repeated coldly. Your personal life has become a public spectacle, one of the board members interjected. Our stock dipped 2 points yesterday. Investors are asking questions. We're getting calls from partners expressing concern about stability. My marriage doesn't affect quarterly earnings. Your judgment does, Min cut in. You signed divorce papers, Jay. You were done. And now, 3 days later, you're back together? It looks impulsive, unstable. It looks like I corrected a mistake. It looks like you're being manipulated. The room went silent. Jay's gaze locked onto his brother. Say that again. Min pushed off the window, stepping closer. She left you. She hid a pregnancy. And now she's back the moment things get difficult. You don't think that's convenient? Careful, Min. I'm being honest. Someone has to be. You're being insulting. I'm protecting this family. Jay stood slowly. You're protecting your inheritance. Enough. Their father's fist hit the table. This isn't about inheritance. This is about responsibility. You're the CEO, Jay. You have obligations. And I'm meeting them. Not if you're distracted by a woman who... Finish that sentence, Jay said quietly, dangerously. I want to hear you finish it. His father's jaw tightened. But he didn't continue. Jay's mother leaned forward. We're not asking you to abandon her, Jay. We're asking you to think clearly. If you want to support her, fine. Set her up in a home, provide for the child. But don't let this derail everything you've built. You want me to keep her as a secret. We want you to keep your position secure. By hiding my family. By protecting your legacy. Jay laughed, a short, bitter sound. You really don't understand, do you? Understand what? I don't care about the legacy, not if it costs me them. The room erupted, board members talking over each other, Min arguing, his mother's voice rising. But Jay just stood there, calm, immovable. If you walk away from this company, his father started, I'm not walking away. I'm setting boundaries. Jay's voice cut through the chaos. I'll run the company. I'll make you your money. I'll keep the empire standing. But my personal life is mine. And if you can't accept that, then you can find a new CEO. You're bluffing, Min said. Try me. His mother stood. Jay, please, think about what you're saying. I've thought about nothing else for 3 days. He looked at each of them in turn. I've spent my entire life building what you wanted, becoming who you needed, sacrificing what I loved for what you valued. And I'm done. You'll regret this, his father said. Maybe. But I'll regret losing her more. He turned toward the door. If you leave this room, Jay, his mother's voice was shaking. We can't protect you. He paused. I never asked you to. And he walked out. She was awake when he got home, sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring out at the city. How did it go? She asked softly. He sat beside her. About as well as expected. She turned to face him. Jay, if this is going to destroy everything you've worked for, it won't. You don't know that. I know I can rebuild a company. I can't rebuild you. Her eyes filled with tears. I hate that you're going through this because of me. I'm going through this because of us. Because I finally found something worth fighting for. She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her, carefully, gently, like she was something precious. They're not going to stop, she whispered. I know. Your family, the press, the board, they're going to make this as hard as possible. I know. And you're still choosing this. He pulled back just enough to look at her. Every single time. She kissed him then, soft, slow, full of everything they'd lost and found again. And for the first time in months, the world outside didn't matter. The backlash came swift and merciless. Within 48 hours of Jay's confrontation with his family, the media machine kicked into overdrive. Not by accident. Someone was feeding the press carefully curated leaks designed to paint a specific picture. Kang Air chooses love over legacy, family in crisis, sources close to Kang Industries. Report internal conflict, board members express concern over CEO's stability. Every headline was a calculated strike. Every anonymous insider, quote, another weapon aimed at dismantling what Jay and she were trying to rebuild. She read them all from the safety of his penthouse, her hands trembling as she scrolled through article after article. You shouldn't be looking at those, Jay said, taking the tablet from her hands gently but firmly. How can I not? Her voice cracked. They're destroying you because of me. They're trying to control me. There's a difference. She stood, pacing the length of the living room, slow, careful movements that accommodated the weight she now carried. 7 months pregnant and caught in the center of a storm she never asked for. Your stock dropped again, she said quietly. 4 points in 2 days. It'll recover. Your brother gave an interview. Did you see it? Jay's jaw tightened. He had seen it. Min, sitting in a perfectly staged office, speaking with measured concern about family values and corporate responsibility, and the pressure of leadership. Never mentioning her by name, never being explicit, just planting seeds of doubt in every carefully chosen word. Min is protecting his position, Jay said. Nothing more. He's turning the board against you. The board answers to results. I've tripled their portfolio value in 3 years. They're not going anywhere. But even as he said it, he knew the truth was more complicated. Money mattered, but so did perception. And right now, the perception was that Jay Kang, the unshakable CEO who'd built an empire through calculated precision, was making emotional decisions that threatened everything. She stopped pacing, turning to face him. What if they're right? They're not. What if I am the liability they think I am? He crossed the room in 3 strides, his hands cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted the storm in his eyes. You are not a liability. You are not a mistake. You are not something I need to be protected from. His thumb brushed away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. You are the only thing in my life that makes sense. Your empire made sense. My empire was empty. She closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. I'm scared, Jay. So am I. The admission hung between them, raw, honest, terrifying. But I'd rather be scared with you, he continued, than safe without you. The emergency board meeting was called for Friday morning. Jay knew what was coming. Min had been working the phones all week, building alliances, crafting narratives, positioning himself as the stable alternative to his emotionally compromised younger brother. She insisted on going with him. Absolutely not, Jay said immediately. I'm not asking for permission. You need rest. Stress isn't good for the baby, I know. She met his gaze steadily. But this is about our baby, our family, and I'm not hiding while they try to tear you down. They'll use you. They'll say things. Let them. Her voice was stronger than he'd heard in weeks. I've spent 7 months hiding, protecting myself by staying invisible, and all it did was make everything worse. Maybe it's time they see me, really see me. He wanted to argue. Every protective instinct in him screamed to keep her away from that room, from those people, from the ugliness of corporate warfare. But he also knew that look in her eyes. The same look she'd had 3 years ago when she'd walked into his office and challenged everything he thought he knew about business, about life, about himself. If it gets to be too much, I'll leave, I promise. You stay beside me, the entire time. Wouldn't dream of being anywhere else. They arrived together. The executive conference room fell silent when they entered. 12 board members seated around an obsidian table, his father at the head. Min to his right, his mother near the window, her expression unreadable, and every eye turned to her. She wore a simple navy dress that didn't hide her pregnancy, didn't try to. Her natural hair was pulled back elegantly. No armor, no mask, just herself. Jay guided her to a chair beside his at the table. The power position. The statement was clear. She belongs here. This is a closed board meeting, one of the older members said immediately. Family and board only. She's family, Jay replied. His tone left no room for debate. Min leaned forward. Jay, we appreciate that you're going through something personal, but this meeting is about serious corporate matters. My family is a serious matter. Your judgment is what's in question here. The words dropped like stones into still water. Jay's expression didn't change. But she felt him tense beside her, felt the controlled fury radiating from his stillness. Elaborate, Jay said softly, dangerously. His father cleared his throat. The board has concerns, Jay. Legitimate concerns about recent decisions, about stability, about whether I'm fit to lead because I chose my pregnant wife over corporate optics. The bluntness of it silenced the room. That's not how we'd phrase it, another board member offered diplomatically. But it's what you mean. We mean, his mother interjected carefully, that leadership requires sacrifice. It requires putting the company first, and right now it appears that your priorities have shifted. My priorities have clarified. To the detriment of Kang Industries. Jay leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming once against the armrest, the only outward sign of his anger. Let's talk about detriment, he said. 3 years ago, this company was worth $8 billion. Today, it's worth $22 billion. 3 years ago, we had contracts in 6 countries. Today, we operate in 42. 3 years ago, our market share in tech was 17%. Today, it's 41%. He paused, letting the numbers settle. I did that. Not this board. Not my father's legacy. Me. His gaze swept the room. So when you question my judgment, remember what that judgment has earned you. Past performance doesn't guarantee, Min started. Nothing guarantees anything. Jay cut him off. But I've earned the right to live my life without interference. And if you can't accept that, then we have a different problem. Are you threatening this board? One of the members asked, incredulous. I'm reminding you who built what you're sitting on. The tension was suffocating. Then she spoke. May I say something? Every head turned toward her, some surprised, some dismissive, some curious. Jay started to object, to protect her from this, but she touched his hand briefly. Let me. She stood slowly, carefully, her hand resting on her belly. I know what you think of me, she said quietly. I know what the headlines say, that I'm a distraction, a liability, a mistake that's going to cost you everything. She looked at each board member in turn. And maybe you're right. Maybe I am all of those things. Her voice was steady, unflinching. But I'm also the woman who sat with Jay through 70-hour work weeks when he was restructuring the European division. I'm the woman who listened to every doubt, every fear, every impossible decision he had to make, and never once asked him to be anything other than exactly who he is. She paused. I left because I thought I was protecting him. Because I thought a man like him, a man who built empires, deserved a life without complications. Without someone who didn't fit the perfect picture you all have in your heads. Her eyes glistened, but her voice didn't waver. But I was wrong. Because the man you're so worried about losing? He's not the man who sacrifices everything for corporate approval. He's the man who knows what actually matters. And if you can't see that, then maybe you don't know him at all. The silence that followed was absolute. She sat back down, her hand finding Jay's under the table. He squeezed it, gentle, firm, grateful. His father was the first to speak. You make a compelling case, he said slowly. But emotion doesn't run companies. Strategy does. Discipline does. And right now, Jay interrupted, I'm offering you a choice. Trust that I can do my job and live my life. Or try to replace me and watch what happens to your stock price when the CEO who tripled your value walks away. You're bluffing, Min said again, but there was less certainty this time. I've never bluffed in my life. His mother stood. Jay, please, we're family, then act like it. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of every betrayal, every judgment, every moment they'd chosen empire over him. We need to vote, one of the board members said finally. Vote on what? Jay asked. On whether we have confidence in your continued leadership. The room held its breath. Then vote, Jay said. But understand this. Whatever you decide, I'm not changing my mind. About her, about us, about what kind of life I'm going to build. The vote was called. It was closer than it should have been, but it passed. 7-5 in Jay's favor. Not unanimous, not resounding, but enough. When they left the building, she was shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline, from the sheer magnitude of what had just happened. You were incredible, Jay said as they reached his car. I was terrified. You didn't show it. She laughed, a breathless, slightly hysterical sound. I thought I was going to pass out. He opened the car door for her, helping her in with the careful attention he'd perfected over the past weeks. What happens now? She asked as he slid into the driver's seat. Now, he said, starting the engine, we live our lives. Just like that? Just like that. She looked at him, this man who'd just bet everything on them, and felt something shift inside her. Not fear, not doubt. Hope. The next 2 weeks were fragile peace. The media storm didn't disappear, but it quieted. The board backed down, publicly at least. And Jay returned to running his empire with the same precision that had built it, now with new boundaries firmly in place. But she could feel the tension underneath. The unfinished conversations, the family members who didn't call, the carefully worded statements from corporate communications trying to manage the narrative. And her body was changing rapidly now. At 32 weeks, every movement was deliberate, every breath slightly more difficult. The baby, their daughter they'd learned, was growing stronger, more active, more real with each passing day. She kicked again, she said one evening, Jay's hand pressed against her belly. Strong, he murmured, a rare smile touching his lips. Like her father. Stubborn like her mother. She laughed, then winced slightly. Everything hurts. What do you need? For time to slow down and speed up, somehow simultaneously. He understood. The pregnancy felt both endless and impossibly short. Soon their daughter would be here. Real. Vulnerable. Dependent on them to build a world safe enough for her to grow in. Have you thought about names? She asked. They'd avoided the conversation, both dancing around it like it was too permanent, too real. I have, he admitted. And? Maya. She turned to look at him. Maya. It means illusion in Sanskrit, but also beloved in different cultures. I thought... He paused, searching for words. I thought it fit. Because she's both. Something I didn't believe could be real. And something I'll love more than anything. Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. Maya, she whispered, testing the name. Maya Kang. If you don't like it, I love it. He kissed her forehead, soft and reverent. Then Maya she is. The call came at 2 a.m. on a Thursday. She was already awake. Sleep had become impossible, her body too uncomfortable, her mind too active. But Jay's phone ringing cut through the quiet like an alarm. He answered immediately, his voice alert despite the hour. What is it? She couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched his face shift, concern, then anger, then something colder. When? A pause. How bad? Another pause. I'll handle it. He ended the call and sat up, already reaching for his clothes. What happened? She asked. Someone leaked internal documents, financial records, private correspondence, everything. Her stomach dropped. Who? We don't know yet. But it's bad. The press has them. Our competitors have them, and the SEC will probably have questions by morning. Oh God, Jay, I need to go to the office. Get ahead of this before... At 2 in the morning? The damage is already happening. Every minute counts. She struggled to sit up. I'm coming with you. No. Jay, no, he repeated, firmer. You need rest. Stress isn't good for the baby, I know. She grabbed his hand. But watching you go through this alone isn't good for me either. He hesitated, torn between protecting her and needing her. Please, she said softly. We're in this together. Remember? He closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. 20 minutes, then you come home. Deal. The office was chaos. Emergency lights illuminated the executive floor. IT specialists hunched over computers. Legal advisors barked into phones, and Jay's assistant looked like she'd aged 10 years in one night. "Talk to me," Jay commanded, shedding his coat as he entered his office. His chief counsel laid out the nightmare: proprietary technology blueprints, acquisition strategies, private communications with board members, personal financial records, all uploaded to a public forum an hour ago. "Whoever did this had access to everything," the counsel said. "This isn't a hack from outside. This is internal." Jay's expression was stone. "Narrow the list." "We're working on it, but Jay, the exposure here. This could trigger investigations, lawsuits, competitor actions." "I'm aware. What's our immediate response?" They worked through the night, drafting statements, notifying partners, building legal defenses. Damage control on a scale she'd never witnessed. She sat in the corner of his office watching him operate. This was the Jay the world knew. Cold, efficient, ruthless in his precision. Every word calculated, every decision strategic. But she also saw the moments between commands, the way his hand would clench briefly, the slight tightness around his eyes, the weight of knowing that someone he trusted had betrayed him. At 5 a.m., Min arrived. "Jay," he said, his face grave, "we need to talk. Privately. Anything you have to say, you can say here." Min's gaze flicked to her. "It's about the leak. We know who it was." The room went silent. "Who?" Jay's voice was deadly quiet. Min hesitated. "It was Mom." The words landed like a physical blow. "What?" Jay's voice was barely above a whisper. "She didn't mean for it to go this far. She hired someone to gather information, leverage to convince you to step back from the relationship. But the person she hired, they had other plans. They took everything and released it publicly." She felt the air leave the room, felt Jay's entire world fracture. "Mom did this," Jay repeated slowly, like he was testing whether the words were real. "She's devastated. She never intended. She hired someone to spy on me, to steal from my company, to destroy—" His voice cracked. "To destroy everything. She thought she was protecting you. By betraying me?" Min stepped forward. "Jay, she made a mistake, a terrible mistake. But she's family. We have to— Get out." "What?" "Get out of my office. Now." "Jay, we need to handle this together. You want to handle it?" Jay's voice was pure ice. "Fine. Tell our mother that she's no longer welcome in this building. Tell her that every access credential she has is revoked. Tell her that if she ever contacts me again, I'll pursue legal action." "You don't mean that." "I've never meant anything more." Jay turned away, his shoulders rigid. "And Min? If you ever keep something like this from me again, if you ever prioritize family politics over honesty, you're out too." Min left without another word. The office remained silent. No one knew what to say, how to fix this. She stood slowly, crossing to where Jay stood by the window, staring out at the city lights. "Jay?" she said softly. He didn't respond. She placed her hand on his back, felt the tension coiled there like a spring wound too tight. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "She did this because of you. Because of us." His voice was hollow. "Everything I said about choosing you over the Empire." She heard that as a threat, and she tried to eliminate the threat. She was wrong. "She's my mother." And she was still wrong. He turned to face her, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw Jay Kang truly broken. "What if they're all right?" he said quietly. "What if loving you does destroy everything?" She cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Then we'll build something new, something better, something that's actually ours." "I don't know if I can do that." "You don't have to know. You just have to try." He pulled her close, carefully, always careful of her belly, and held her like she was the only thing keeping him standing. Maybe she was. The scandal broke wide the next morning. Not just business news, front page, every major network, every business outlet, every gossip blog hungry for the fall of an empire. The story had everything the media craved: wealth, betrayal, family warfare, corporate espionage. And at the center of it all, Jay Kang, the unshakable CEO who'd built a $22 billion empire, now revealed as the target of his own mother's sabotage. His mother issued a public apology within hours, carefully worded, legally vetted, utterly insufficient. "I deeply regret the actions taken by individuals I hired in a misguided attempt to protect my family. I never intended for private information to become public, and I take full responsibility for the consequences of my poor judgment." The statement was everywhere, but it changed nothing. The damage was catastrophic. Stock prices didn't just fall, they cratered. Kang Industries lost $6 billion in market value in a single trading day. Partners demanded emergency calls. Investors threatened lawsuits. Competitors smelled blood in the water and circled with acquisition offers. And the board, the same board that had voted to keep him just days earlier, called another emergency meeting. But this time, Jay didn't attend. Instead, he sent a letter, 3 paragraphs, short, direct, final, to the board of directors of Kang Industries. Effective immediately, I resign as chief executive officer. I will retain my shares, but relinquish all operational authority and board positions. My resignation is not an admission of failure. It is a recognition that I have spent 12 years building something that was never truly mine, and I refuse to spend 12 more defending it. I wish you success in finding leadership that values the empire more than I ever could. Jay Kang. The business world didn't just react, it exploded. Stock prices went into freefall. Emergency press conferences were called. Analysts declared it the end of an era, and corporate suicide, and the most shocking resignation in modern business history. His father tried calling, 17 times. His brother showed up at the penthouse. Jay didn't let him in. Even former business partners, people who'd made millions through their association with him, reached out with messages ranging from confused to furious to pleading. But Jay's phone stayed mostly silent, because he'd already made his choice. She found him on the balcony that evening, watching the city lights flicker to life below. "You really did it," she said softly, stepping beside him. "I did. How do you feel?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Lighter than I've felt in years." She studied his profile, this man who'd just walked away from everything the world told him mattered. "Do you regret it?" "Not even a little." "Jay, you built that company?" "I built a prison." He turned to face her, his hand moving instinctively to rest on her belly. "And I finally found something worth escaping for." She felt tears prick her eyes. "What are we going to do?" "We're going to live." He said it simply, like it was the most obvious answer in the world. Really live, not perform, not survive. Live. People will say you failed. Let them. I know what success actually looks like now. He pulled her close, carefully, always careful of the life growing between them, and kissed her forehead with a tenderness that still surprised her. "I need to tell you something," she whispered against his chest. "What?" "I'm terrified." "Of what?" "That one day you'll wake up and realize what you gave up. That you'll resent me, resent her." Her hand covered his on her stomach. "That this won't be enough." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "Do you know what I thought about when I wrote that resignation letter?" She shook her head. "I thought about the first time you fell asleep on my couch. It was 3 a.m. We'd been arguing about a marketing campaign for hours. You were so stubborn, so passionate. And then suddenly you just stopped, curled up on the cushions and fell asleep mid-sentence." A small smile touched her lips at the memory. "I sat there watching you," he continued, And I remember thinking, this is the first time this apartment has felt like home. Not because of anything you did, just because you were in it. His thumb brushed away a tear on her cheek. That's when I knew, long before I admitted it, long before I understood it, that everything I'd built meant nothing if you weren't there to share it with. Jay? So no. I won't wake up one day and regret this, because the only thing I've ever regretted was signing those divorce papers, and I'm never making that mistake again. They left the city 3 days later. Not running, not hiding, choosing. Jay had liquidated a significant portion of his personal shares before the full collapse. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to never worry about money again. Enough to build something different, something theirs. The house he bought was 2 hours north along the coast. A modern structure of glass and wood perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, surrounded by forest on 3 sides and ocean on the 4th. No neighbors for miles, no paparazzi, no pressure, just space to breathe. The moving truck arrived on a gray morning, fog rolling in off the water like nature's curtain between their old life and new. "It's perfect," she said, standing in the empty living room, her hand resting on her belly. Now 34 weeks, the baby pressing against her ribs with increasing frequency. "It's quiet," Jay said, watching her carefully. "Too quiet?" "No." She turned to him, her smile genuine for the first time in weeks. "It's exactly right." They spent the next week unpacking, arranging, transforming the house into a home. Jay, who'd spent 12 years commanding boardrooms and closing billion-dollar deals, now assembled cribs and learned the difference between blackout curtains and thermal curtains. "You're terrible at this," she laughed one afternoon, watching him struggle with furniture instructions. "I built a $22 billion company. You can't build a changing table. These instructions are in Swedish. They're in English with diagrams." He looked up at her, and despite the frustration on his face, he was smiling. Actually smiling. Not the controlled expression he wore in meetings. Something real. "I like this version of you," she said softly. "Incompetent and confused? Human." The nursery came together slowly. Soft yellows and creams, a rocking chair by the window, shelves waiting to be filled with books and toys and all the small treasures of childhood. She stood in the doorway one evening, watching Jay arrange stuffed animals on a shelf with the same intensity he'd once applied to corporate acquisitions. "She's going to love it," she said. "How do you know?" "Because you made it for her." He stepped back, surveying his work. "I have no idea what I'm doing." "Join the club." "You seem remarkably calm for someone who's about to become a mother." "I'm terrified. I'm just better at hiding it." He crossed to her, his hands settling on her hips. "We're going to mess this up, you know. Make mistakes. Do everything wrong." "Probably." "Hot, and she's going to be perfect anyway." "Definitely." He kissed her then, slow, deep, full of everything they couldn't say. All the fear and hope and desperate love that came with waiting for a life you'd die to protect. "6 more weeks," she whispered when they broke apart. "Are you ready?" "No, you? Not even close." They stood there in the nursery, holding each other, preparing for the most important thing they'd ever do. Maya arrived on a Tuesday morning in late autumn, not in some sterile hospital surrounded by strangers, but in the birthing center they'd chosen, a small facility that felt more like a home than a medical ward, with large windows overlooking the ocean and midwives who treated birth like the natural miracle it was instead of a medical emergency. Labor started at dawn, slow at first. Waves of sensation that built gradually, giving them time to breathe, to prepare, to remember that they were doing this together. Jay never left her side. He held her hand through contractions, whispered encouragement when she was certain she couldn't continue, wiped her forehead with cool cloths, reminded her to breathe when the pain made her forget how. "I can't," she gasped at one point, exhausted and overwhelmed. "Jay, I can't." You can. You are. You're the strongest person I've ever known. I'm not. You left me to protect our daughter. You came back to fight for us. You stood up to my family, to the board, to everyone who said we couldn't make this work. He pressed his forehead to hers. If you can do all that, you can do this. She laughed through tears. You're very bossy in delivery rooms. I'm consistently bossy. You just finally noticed. And somehow, impossibly, that made it easier. Maya entered the world at 11:47 a.m., with the autumn sun streaming through the windows and the sound of waves crashing below. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, dark curls already showing, her mother's deep brown eyes, and lungs that announced her arrival with impressive volume. When the midwife placed her in Jay's arms, the world stopped. Not metaphorically, not poetically, actually stopped. Every sound faded, every worry dissolved, every doubt, every fear, every moment of uncertainty. Gone. There was only this tiny, perfect human looking up at him with eyes that saw everything and understood nothing, completely dependent on him for everything. And somehow that dependence didn't feel like a burden. It felt like purpose. Hi, Maya, he whispered, his voice breaking. I'm your dad. She blinked slowly, her tiny fist gripping his finger with surprising strength. And Jay Kang, who'd negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, who'd faced down hostile boards and corporate warfare with ice in his veins, completely fell apart. Tears streamed down his face. His shoulders shook, and he couldn't stop smiling. She's perfect, he managed to say. She's ours, her mother replied from the bed, exhausted and radiant and more beautiful than he'd ever seen her. The midwife gave them space, time to exist in this moment that would define every moment after. Jay carefully carried Maya to her mother, placing their daughter in her arms with the reverence of someone handling something sacred. And as he watched them, his wife and his daughter, his entire world contained in one image, he understood something fundamental. He hadn't given up his empire. He'd just built a better one. The first weeks were chaos. Beautiful, exhausting, overwhelming chaos. Maya didn't sleep. Or rather, she slept in 2-hour increments that felt like torture devices designed to test human endurance. She ate constantly, cried unpredictably, required attention at all hours, and Jay loved every impossible second of it. He learned to change diapers in the dark, mastered the art of heating bottles to exactly the right temperature, discovered that the only thing that soothed Maya during her 2 a.m. crying sessions was walking the length of the house while humming old Korean lullabies his grandmother had sung to him decades ago. You're a natural, she said one morning, watching him rock Maya back to sleep with practiced ease. I'm winging it. We all are. He looked down at his daughter, tiny, fragile, completely dependent on him, and felt something shift inside his chest. This was what mattered. Not stock prices or board meetings or legacy. This. Protecting something innocent. Building a life safe enough for her to grow in. Being present for every smile, every cry, every miraculous, ordinary moment. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. She looked up from where she was folding tiny onesies. What? I'm happy. The simplicity of it made her smile. Yeah? Genuinely, completely happy. For the first time in my life, I'm not waiting for the next crisis, not planning the next acquisition, not thinking 3 moves ahead. He looked at her. I'm just here, and it's enough. She set down the laundry and crossed to him, her arms wrapping around him and Maya both. It's more than enough, she whispered. It's everything. 6 months later, Jay stood in his home office, a small room overlooking the garden where she was teaching Maya to recognize flowers, optimistically, given that Maya was more interested in trying to eat them, and opened his laptop. He'd been quiet about his next move, deliberately so. But he hadn't been idle. The company he'd founded was small, Just him and 3 people he trusted absolutely. Former colleagues who'd left Kang Industries not because of the scandal, but because they believed in what Jay was building instead. No board, no family politics, no corporate warfare, no investors demanding quarterly growth above all else. They built software, educational tools for underprivileged communities, technology that made learning accessible to kids who'd never had access before, apps that taught literacy, math, science, all free, all designed to solve real problems instead of generating maximum profit. It would never be Kang Industries. It would never make him billions. But watching the usage statistics grow, seeing real children in real communities accessing education they'd never had before, gave him something no acquisition ever had: purpose. "How's the world changing going?" she asked, appearing in the doorway with Maya on her hip. "Slowly, but it's happening." "Any regrets?" "Only that I didn't do this sooner." She smiled, crossing to kiss him. Maya reached for his face with sticky hands. She'd apparently succeeded in eating some of the flowers, and he took her gratefully, letting her grab his nose and laugh at her own power. "Your daughter is a menace," he said affectionately. "Our daughter is curious." She tried to eat a rose. "She's developing her palate." He laughed, a sound that came easily now, without the weight of empire pressing down on it. His phone buzzed. A text from Min. "Dad wants to meet Maya. Says he's sorry. Says he wants to try." Jay stared at the message for a long moment. "What is it?" she asked, reading his expression. He showed her the text. She was quiet, letting him process. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to say no, to protect her from all of that. And the other part wants her to have grandparents, even imperfect ones." She touched his arm gently. "You don't have to decide today. I don't want her growing up with the same pressure I had, the same expectations. She won't, because you're not your father, and we're not building that kind of empire." He looked down at Maya, who was now trying to grab his glasses. "Maybe we start small," she suggested. "Lunch? Somewhere public. Clear boundaries." "You'd be okay with that?" "I'd be okay with whatever you need. But Jay, you don't owe them access to her. That's something they have to earn." He nodded slowly. "One lunch, supervised, and if they make one comment about my choices, about our family, about anything, we leave. Immediately. Deal." The lunch happened 3 weeks later. A quiet restaurant. Outdoor seating, neutral territory. His father arrived looking older than Jay remembered. His mother wore understated clothes instead of her usual designer armor. They both seemed smaller somehow, uncertain. "Thank you for agreeing to this," his father said quietly. Jay said nothing, just adjusted Maya's sun hat and waited. His mother's eyes fixed on the baby. "She's beautiful." "She is. May I—" She hesitated. "May I hold her?" Jay looked at his wife. She nodded slightly. "Your call." For a minute. He passed Maya over carefully, watching like a hawk as his mother cradled his daughter with surprising gentleness. "Hi, Maya," she whispered. "I'm your grandmother. And I'm so sorry I almost missed meeting you." Maya stared up at her with solemn eyes, taking in this new face. "I made terrible choices," his mother continued, speaking to Maya, but meaning the words for Jay. "I thought I was protecting your father, but I was really just trying to control him, and I hurt people I love because of it." She looked up at Jay, tears in her eyes. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I hope, one day, you might let me try to be better." Jay's jaw was tight. "Actions, not words. I know." His father spoke next. "I was wrong too, about what matters, about what success looks like." He gestured at the small family before him. "You built something better than I ever did. I'm still building it. We know. Min told us about your new company. It's good work, Jay. It's work that matters." "Yes, it is." The lunch was awkward. stilted, full of careful boundaries and unhealed wounds. But it was a beginning, and when they left, Jay felt something he hadn't expected. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it. 1 year after Maya's birth, they stood on their porch watching the sunset. Maya was walking now, stumbling really, with that determined toddler confidence that made every step an adventure. She chased a butterfly across the garden while they watched, ready to catch her if she fell. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked quietly. "The old life?" Jay considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I miss the challenge, the strategy, the feeling of closing a deal. But then Maya says dada and forgets how to walk at the same time and falls on her butt. And I remember what actually matters." She laughed. "That's very poetic." "I'm learning." They watched their daughter discover a ladybug, watched her crouch down with intense focus, watched her entire world become this one tiny insect on her finger. "We did it," she said softly. "We actually built something good. We're still building it." "True, but look at what we have." He pulled her closer. "I am looking, and I've never been prouder of anything in my life." Maya toddled back toward them, arms outstretched, demanding to be picked up. Jay scooped her up, lifting her high until she squealed with delight. And in that moment, standing on the porch of a home he'd chosen instead of inherited, holding a daughter who would never know the weight of empire, beside a woman who'd fought for him even when he couldn't fight for himself, Jay Kang understood something profound. He hadn't lost his empire when he resigned. He'd just learned what empire actually meant. Not buildings or money or power, but this. Love, family, presence. A life built on choice instead of obligation. And that empire? That was something worth everything. Thank you for experiencing Jay and Maya's story with us. If this touched your heart, support us through Super Thanks Subscribe for more emotional, powerful love stories. Your support lets us keep creating stories that celebrate multicultural romance, second chances, and love that defies everything. Thank you for being part of this community. See you in the next story.